Alright guys, so I know a lot of people are supposed to be gone on Thursday, so I decided to try the video note method again so that the people who are gone can view the notes. I'll try to keep switching things up so that we go through a variety of methods. I know some people prefer this method and some people prefer the traditional method. By switching things up, I hope that everybody is learning with a little bit of both ways, and that the people who like the video notes get a little bit of that, and that the people who like the in-class notes get a little bit of that as well, just so that I'm doing what works best for you guys. But anyways, let's get started. So today we're going to be talking about changes in ecosystems. And in addition to that, ecological succession, which a lot of you might not know what that means yet, but we're going to go through that and we're going to talk about it. So, living in Colorado, we see that there are forest fires every now and then. So here's a picture on the top left of a forest fire in progress. So have you ever wondered what happens to that area once the fire ceases? So let's take a look. Here is a picture on the bottom right of what an area looks like after a forest fire has ceased taking place. So once a forest fire has gone through its course, you see that this area looks pretty barren and pretty lifeless. So how does a barren and lifeless area like this change over time? Does it stay like that forever? Does it never regrow? Or do things actually end up regrowing? So think about that for a second. So, yes, things actually do regrow in that barren area after a while. So that forest fire, looking back here, that forest fire wiped out all of the life that was in that area. But now take a look at this. Here's a picture of a plant colonizing an area that was previously consumed with flames, where the forest fire took place. So, the process where there is a change in the species structure of an ecological community over time is called ecological succession. So, ecological succession. Ecosystems tend to change with time until a stable system is formed. The stable system that will form depends on the climatic limitations. And I'll talk about what that means here in a bit. But essentially what it means is that depending on the climate and depending on what the ecosystem that was there before, what that area can support, that is going to depend on what regrows and what system regrows. Alright, anyways, so the replacement of one community by another until a stable stage is reached is called ecological succession. So our topic. So this is really important right here. So just to go on further and define that, natural gradual changes in the type of species that live in an area, that's ecological succession, and it can be primary or secondary. So the gradual replacement of one plant community or animal community by another throughout natural processes over time. That's ecological succession. So in the bottom right, you can kind of see what that looks like. So in the bottom right image, you see that starts with annual plants right here. And then it moves on to perennial plants and grasses, so a little bit more diverse. Then it goes to shrubs, then to softwood trees, and then finally to these big hardy hardwood trees. So let's start with primary succession. So what does primary succession mean? That means that succession is going to occur in a place that begins without any soil. So it begins in a completely lifeless area. So I'm talking about things like sides of volcanoes, landslides, areas that have been completely wiped out by floods, like on rocks, essentially. And it starts with the arrival of living things such as lichens. So we talked about lichens the other day, so that do not need soil to survive. So our our organisms that are super hardy and able to live in areas with essentially almost nothing living there or planted there. These things are called pioneer species. Okay, the first species. So if we think about like when you settle something in a previously uninhabited area, that is a pioneer. So these pioneer species are the first ones there to settle this soon to be new living environment and ecosystem. So on this slide, what I have for you guys is here are a couple pictures of some lichens. These are pioneer species. So these pioneer species that are colonizing some previously uninhabited surfaces. So this looks to be like the sides of some rocks. So pioneer species. Pioneer species are organisms that can tolerate extreme conditions. So really hot temperatures, really cold temperatures, or dry and wet areas that other things like maybe your houseplants, maybe your small organisms can't inhabit. So pioneer species include moss, dune grass, and lichens. These are our pioneer organisms. So we talked about lichens earlier this week. Lichens are algae and fungus growing together in a mutualistic relationship. Remember what kind of relationship a mutualistic relationship is? That's one where both species benefit from the relationship. So algae make the food, and fungi anchor the algae to the rock, the lichen to the rock, and help to capture water. Anyways, back to succession. So soil, in primary succession, soil starts to form as lichens and the forces of weather and erosion help to break down rocks into smaller pieces. So from accelerated physical Earth, or even a little bit from the phosphorus cycle we talked about last week, you know that weather and erosion helps to break down rocks into smaller pieces and starts to form soil. And then when the lichens die, they decompose and add small amounts of organic matter to the rock to make soil. Okay, so soil is produced over hundreds of years by these pioneer organisms, because you remember you're going from like a straight up rock to having soil. These organisms break apart rock and add humus as they die and decompose and hold water. This allows other organisms to begin to grow there. So here's my little picture. They made some soil, and now we can grow more traditional plants. So next in primary succession, simple plants like mosses and ferns can grow in the new soil. So on the left, I have a picture of a fern. So this is a fern. And then on the right, I have a picture of some moss. Anyways, next up, what happens is that the simple plants die and add more organic material. And then the soil layer starts to thicken, and grasses, wildflowers, and other plants can begin to grow and take over. And we talked about competition, right? And these new plants, now that the area is more, there's a better habitat for them, these new plants start to take over, and they outcompete the ferns and the mosses. So now they start to grow there. And now this process continues. Now these grasses and wildflowers die, and they add more nutrients to the soil once again. Now the environment is even better for things like shrubs and trees. And now shrubs and trees can survive in this area, and they start to outcompete the grasses, so they take over. Once that happens, insects, small birds, mammals, they start to move in, because now they're like, huh, this looks like a pretty good area to live in, so they can start to move in. So here I have a picture of of a nice little fox that might move into that area. So what was once bare rock, completely lifeless, now can support a variety of life. And that'll continue until you get what's called a climax community. And I'll talk about a climax community towards the end of the notes. Okay, so that's primary succession. Next up is secondary succession. Don't exactly know what that was. Anyways, I'm gonna break right now and split this into 2 videos. So this is the first part, and look for part 2.